Welcome to everyone. Wonderful to have you on this webinar today, all around AI and how you do adoption done right. Just as housekeeping, this is live, so if you want to ask questions, please do just pop any questions you've got at any point in the chat, and Fraser and I will do our very best to answer you. So just, I guess, then welcome. I'll do my intro first, then I'll hand over to Fraser. So my name's Emma. I head up new business here at BCN, and I also head up our Microsoft relationship. So, genuinely delighted to have as many as we've got on this really interesting subject that's a part of all our lives now. So great to have you here. I'll hand over to Fraser.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fraser Deer. I head up BCN's AI and innovation approach team here at BCN, and we do all sorts of different things here, from the very, very most basic elements of AI all the way through to really sophisticated data architectures that support AI initiatives for organizations.
Excellent. Thank you. So we're going to cover a few subjects today, and as I've mentioned, for people that have just joined, if you've got questions at any point, please do just pop them in the chat. We are live and we'll happily help answer. There's three areas that we're going to really concentrate on. We're going to talk about how do you pick the right tool? How do you know? What are the key questions that you need to be asking, and how we're working with customers to help do that? How do you build the consensus? How do you get people on board? How do you get people excited? And depending on your role, that might be a different thing, right? So my idea of what is amazing about AI will be completely different to Fraser's. And then it's how do you then start without disrupting your business? How do you actually ingrain this into the work that you do? So those are kind of the three areas that we're going to cover today. Was there any context on that, Fraser, that you'd like to add?
Yeah, it's really just an element of thinking about. It's really easy to jump into a point solution. It's really easy to go, oh, I'll buy that. And then you end up buying lots of that. And then some point, somewhere down the line, someone says, what are we doing? And I think today's session is really just trying to break it down into some bite-sized consumable chunks. There's a whole load of tech that we could go into later, and we will go into later through this series of webinars. But today is really that kind of first dip in the water, opening up these three kind of pillars. And if you can get this bit right, then you can absolutely go all the way.
Excellent, thank you. So if we delve into the first area, so the kind of key questions, where would you start, Fraser, when you're starting to work with a customer? Where are the questions? What do you go through first?
Yeah, no, it's a great place to start. I think when we start, the biggest question that we keep coming up against with our clients is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Don't talk about what you've done, what bits of tech you've got, what your infrastructure is. What is the bottleneck? Because if you can't be specific about what the problem is, there's absolutely no chance of hitting the answer that is not only scalable and deliverable, and we'll come on to some of these things later on, but if you can't articulate what is needed, it's going to be very, very difficult to get a solution. And I think that very first question might sound really, really simple, but actually when you start to get into it and start to eke out some of the bits around the edges, all of a sudden that what are we trying to solve becomes really quite a big conversation. So that is the first question that you need to ask. What are you trying to do? Be really specific. It can't just be something like, oh yeah, we want to improve our revenue. Okay, that sounds lovely. Okay, how? What is it that you want to do with your revenue? Is it revenue in new clients? Is it converting better revenue for your existing client base? And how is that done? So what is the bottleneck with what you've got today that you're trying to then break through?
And would it be fair to say, Fraser, that sometimes you don't actually know there's a problem, particularly maybe if you're senior within an organization, but you're not actually the doer, you're not on the warehouse floor, you didn't maybe realize that you still use a carbon paper copy of something. So it's really important to involve the right people to understand if there is a problem or how something could be made more efficient, right?
So I chuckle because for the younger people of the call, the carbon copy is when you have two bits of paper stuck together and you write on the top one, and there's a second copy underneath, which kind of mirrors what you've already got. No, it's a really good shout, Emma. the C-suite, your executives, your leadership team, sometimes are removed from the day-to-day operations of the business. And, and some of the things that tends to happen is, I just want that. And so somebody goes away and does that and creates a little thing to do that. And then they tell their team that they need to do 3 things to be able to fulfill that one thing. And so the exec member or the leader still gets what they want, but there's a whole tool chain that's been evolving over that period. And that little question now becomes business critical function. You really need to be asking this problem with your teams, not just at the executive level. Yes, they might see the KPI that's not going in the direction they want. But you've got to then break that down into the component parts to understand, well, which levers can we actually pull to address the problem that you're trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second question that you've got here, I get this all the time, where is our data? It's, people are aware that we should be doing something around AI, but we cannot lose our crown jewels, right? We can't give away sensitive information. So, this is definitely something I'm hearing on a daily basis from clients. Do you want to just expand on that a bit?
Yeah, so the AI world's kind of exploded across absolutely everything, product, service that we all touch in our kind of home lives as well as in our business lives. And this question, where does our data go, is absolutely critical. If the supplier, the vendor can't articulate exactly where A, the data is, B, where the data is processed, and C, where the data has inference from, then you need to be asking more deeper questions, because just think, nothing's free in this world, sadly. And if someone says it's going to be a free service, just upload all your information here. Guess what? They'll be using that data. It'll be being processed, not within the UK necessarily. The latest and greatest models, Opus 4.6 was released the other day. Amazing. Okay, well, what does that mean? Oh, it only runs in a US tenancy right now. So guess what? If you're using it, all of your data is in the US. It's not secured. And that question about where is your data and what sovereignty you require as a business is really, really important.
Yeah, excellent. And kind of in line with that is, obviously people have businesses that have grown, unless you're starting up, right now from scratch. How can you integrate AI with things you've already invested in, that both from, monetary, but people and training, how does that integrate? How do you bring it into what you've already got?
Yeah, adoption isn't just, here's a tool, use it. Adoption needs to be brought into the center of how your teams actually work. And so, building a little bot on the side is all lovely and exciting, but the reality is, unless you can embed it in the process that your team currently use, then it's going to be very, very difficult. And most modern tools do have really good APIs, but some may be more challenging. And that's where, sometimes you might need some help to connect the dots to then be able to give you that AI insight. But, this question about integration, about what we already use, if it doesn't have an integration point, we can make one, but it must be there. Otherwise, you'll do this great project and then guess what? No one will use it because it's not embedded and you haven't considered the human adoption when it comes to how are people actually going to use this brand new initiative or this brand new function.
Yeah, because you certainly don't want people to have to adopt a whole new system alongside what they already use, particularly if they're salespeople, right? So I guess, we're a Microsoft-centric company ourselves. That was a conscious decision we've made. Is selecting your vendor important within AI? What would happen if that vendor disappeared? Because, it does happen. Could you give us a little bit of insight around that?
Yeah, it's all of these questions are important. That's why we've said that these are the top 5 questions. And this one is around any new innovation. There's going to be pop-ups, new businesses starting up. And as somebody that looks after innovation, I'm really excited to see these new businesses come to market because actually they're offering really insightful products and services. The danger is if you invest in one of those products and services, there's no guarantee that that business will exist within 6 months. These models and this space is moving so incredibly fast that going with a more established vendor, whoever that may be, will really ensure that you've got a roadmap that will lead you to success. Investing in small point solutions, there is significant risk in that. If you can evaluate that risk and demonstrate that actually it's a risk worth taking, brilliant. And I think that's, that's about, business and economy in the UK. But just bear in mind that if it's part of your core business infrastructure, you need to do all the same due diligence that you would do with any other vendor that you're onboarding.
Excellent, thank you. And then, of course, the final question out of our sort of 5 essential questions that we've highlighted is, what is this going to cost? We all know licensing can be the most fun activity, trying to understand it all. So which is the kind of better model? How do we work out, as a company looking to adopt AI, what the cost to us is going to be?
Yeah. So we'd have to go back to question 1. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And what is the current cost? Then what we would do is we would sit down and work out, right, what tech stack might yield an answer here? Because as we all know, there's many, many ways to come up with a solution to that outcome. Now, if you're particularly cost sensitive, we may want to think about something that's a bit more bound and a bit more structured and a bit more governed. Whereas actually, if you want to be use those latest models, and it's all consumption based at the end of the day, what you need to bear in mind here is it's not just a capital cost, there's an operational cost to all of this stuff. And you can have the most whizzy little agent that runs, but if it costs you £27 every time it runs, small start, they don't cost £27 every time they run, but I'm just trying to illustrate the point.
Yeah.
Did that yield a return on investment? And is it going to be here in 3 weeks' time when somebody gets that invoice? So when we're thinking about the business case for AI in your business, these are the things you should be thinking about, not just the capital cost of implementation, but the operational cost of running it. And doing that early enough in the cycle to say, actually, does this have the right value to proceed?
Excellent, thank you. And I think what's quite interesting for me is, you've spoken for just about 15 minutes now, and we haven't talked tech. And that might be quite surprising as a IT firm. We haven't talked tech. And I think that's probably one of the key messages we want to get across today is AI is all about the processes you have in the company, the people you have, the systems you already have, and where your data is, and making that faster, better, quicker, more productive. The tech is secondary. And that's why you have tech companies that will understand the tech, but you take this time out. And we've, from our experience, these are the kind of the 5 key questions to really understand what you're doing, why, and who needs to be involved. Is that a fair summary, Fraser?
We just need to take this back. There are a number of names on this call, and I've seen some names pop up that made me smile. Many of you will absolutely know your tech inside out. That's brilliant. But all of the stuff here is much more like what you would have a conversation around if you were onboarding a new employee or onboarding a new vendor into your business, because that's what AI is. It's not just a license sell. You don't just buy it and turn it on and leave it. This is just like an employee, and you've got to manage them and treat them in the same way. Is the AI solution still doing what you thought it was going to do 6 months ago? You've got to then start to think about that governance, that adoption, that embedding inside your organization. So it's not a tech conversation. It's an adoption conversation and a human conversation.
Amazing, thank you. If any of you listening on the call, if you've got any comments or questions that you'd like to pop in the chat, then please do. It'd be interesting to kind of get your views on, if you think those are the key questions, if you've got any others that you would ask, or if you've already embarked on your AI journey, would be great to get some feedback. Great, so that's all kind of the first area. We're now going to move on to who needs to be involved. And I guess our key mantra behind this is just take 30 minutes up front to help identify this, to avoid roadblocks further down and to avoid lack of adoption further down the stream. Is that fair, Fraser? Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, no, it's at the end of the day, AI is disruptive. So there's no 2 ways about it. Your organization may be absolutely on board with this and say, yes, we should be doing it. But unless you have a representative from all 4 of these areas of your organization at the right level, at a senior enough level that we can endorse and accept risks and costs, your project will fail, because you need to have one eye on the security aspect and one eye on the IT infrastructure aspect. You need to have one eye on your end users. So we're talking about people here. So actually that might be an HR representative. It might be the actual user that you're trying to solve this problem for. You need to have the budget aspects ironed out and somebody at the table talking about finance, because there is going to be a cost to this. So there may not be a point in starting the project unless finance are on board and can recognise what that return on investment is. And especially if your business is compliant or regulated, there needs to be a legal representation, because, of course, we'll be processing large volumes of data and we'll be making perhaps outcomes or judgments or information that's available. Is there a legal consideration that needs to take place here? You know, things like DPIAs will sound a bit, ugh, but the reality is if you've got an AI solution that's recording, transcripting, understanding and surfacing insights, there is a legal aspect to this. And so these are maybe the same person in your organization. It may be 4 different departments in your organization, but these people need to be at the table for a project to get to ready to scale. Otherwise, if you go in and do a little Fraser project, as I sometimes like to call them, isn't this cool? Well, sadly, it won't get past. It won't meet rigor because you won't be able to scale it because one of these parties won't be at the table.
Absolutely, and I think it's giving that investment and not just expecting IT to provide this. As we've kind of talked about, this isn't an IT solution. Absolutely, anyone in the IT department is there to support, maintain, help secure, etc. But again, this is around people and processes, so you need these stakeholders to be involved and feel part of that journey, I guess is the summary.
Exactly.
Excellent. So yeah, if we just move on to like the next area, this is something genuinely hear all the time, shadow AI. It fascinates me. My son recently finished college and did business A-levels, and the beginning of their course they were told if they ever used AI they would be disqualified from the course, etc. And I was really confused by this, because I was like, but AI is in everything we do. Surely they should be teaching our kids at college how to adopt AI and use it ethically and properly. And yeah, I found that really quite fascinating. But I know that it's an issue for everyone. Is we know people are using AI, even if people are just using WhatsApp, right? That has a level of AI. So, talk to us a bit about the kind of shadow AI problem that we're seeing in customers.
So when we start to talk to clients about an AI journey, we can support organizations create an AI roadmap or an AI plan, an AI strategy. And of course, that then aligns with things like a data strategy. And we start to think about nerdy things like data loss prevention policies and, techie stuff. Purview often comes up. The problem is, if organizations haven't started this journey already, your employees will start it for you. One of the things that we quite like to do is a purview assessment of looking at what tools and functions are being used in your organizations. I was at a client a few weeks ago and he said, no, we don't use AI here. And I said, yes, you do. And listed out all of the AI tools that are being used inside their business today, many of which are SaaS products on the web. So ChatGPT being one of them, to name many. And the problem is that organizations don't know that it's already happening. And because they're behind the curve, what tends to happen is people just turn it off. Oh, let's block ChatGPT, for example. Let's block, many of you will remember the DeepSeek issue. DeepSeek was blocked in so many tenants across the UK. Now, the catch with that is your clever employees will find another way or find another vendor. Blocking isn't the answer. What we need to do here is think about adoption and think about a way to access AI tools that are secure and safe for your teams to use. So things like Copilot Chat. We have a program to support organizations on board things like Copilot Chat into their organization. You're already paying for it. It's got ChatGPT 5.2 in it. But the problem is the organizations don't know what it is or how to use it or even that it's there. And so this whole concept of shadow AI is a really big one. And the reason being, if I can copy and paste data from an Excel spreadsheet onto the web, then guess what? All of your customer data, all of your business data, all of your secrets can very easily be lifted and put on to the internet. And of course, because we're then sending into a free service, there are many, many cases that are already out there. What is intellectual property? Well, it's not intellectual property if you've sent it out into the internet. So there's a huge element here that needs to be led by the organization, not be followed by the organization. And your people are already doing.
Excellent, thank you. So I guess, just in summary of that, then, just make it easy. And, you don't need to be IT literate to onboard AI into your everyday life. And so as long as an organization, you've got tools that meet people's needs, you don't have that friction, as you've described, and you just give people a better option. If you are a Microsoft user and if Copilot is the right tools for the use cases you're looking at, wow, it's all in one place. But then you as a company know that you're able to govern it and you've got the security tooling around it.
Nobody wants to come to work and do a bad job. If there are ways to make that faster, more productive, better output, your employees will find it.
Yeah. And that leads us really nicely onto our third element of the webinar today, is like, where do I start? This is the other question I get asked all the time, is AI. What does AI mean? How do I even begin to embark on this journey? So, give us some insight into that, Fraser. If you were speaking to a customer now, what's the things that you would advise?
So appetites are usually huge. Expectations are off the scale because everybody thinks, AI is powered by unicorn tears, right? The reality is it's not. And so starting small can really have huge impact. The reason being, you all know in this call today, there's always going to be that one thing that consumes lots and lots of time, lots of effort, highly administrative or completely repetitive, but you're like, there must be a better way. Pick that one thing, just that one thing, automate it, either through business process automation or AI, and then show that there is actual value in doing that. So layer AI into that bottleneck and see what the impact is for your organization. But it's got to be really specific and it's got to be bound. And so there's loads and loads of really easy entry points here. So things like documentation summaries, meeting notes, this call itself is being transcribed. Use that transcription. Don't write manual notes anymore. Yes, there are paid for licensing products. So you have things like Teams Premium, M365 Copilot, but actually Copilot Chat can do a huge amount. So build that one single business problem and tackle it and deploy it and demonstrate it that it's safe, secure, governed and scalable and delivers value to your organization. And all of a sudden there'll be a shift and your people will go, oh, hang on, this is safe. This isn't scary. This makes sense. I can do something with this. And then you can start to then build on top of that easy success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you may remember a few months back, you and I were on our way to a client and you showed me Researcher. And that's genuinely transformed the way I do business now. For those of you that don't know it, it's part of the paid Copilot, and it allows you to ask Copilot about a customer, why they'd be interested in the thing you're going to talk to them about. It will pull together a document. It can put that into a PowerPoint. Now, it's never going to be 100% accurate, right? As we all know with AI, you've got to go and check these things. But genuinely, that has transformed, instead of me having to work hours of an evening, it just allows me to be more productive. So that, along with meeting notes, meeting minutes, means I can listen to my customers better, because someone else is taking the notes. So it means I can give my full attention. So certainly for me, these like low disruption entry points have literally transformed how I work. And I wouldn't have said that before. And I think the interesting one, we chatted about it, is the email one. I personally don't like to use it for my day-to-day email because I find it a bit impersonal. Where would you see email being a good use case for AI?
This is a really good question about I don't like using the email write email for you either, because it is a bit impersonal. It doesn't quite sound quite like me somehow. But where I have used it, and hopefully not breaking any confidences here, is I've written those ranty emails. You've all done it, and it's like and it's 3 pages long before you get to the end of it. Using Copilot in that scenario to say, like, there's a whole body of stuff that I've just kind of spewed on a page. Make that into a strategic, high-impact message. Actually, that can really turn around how you're using your email. And also, maybe there's a personnel issue you want to make sure is, well, how do I make it sound like this without sounding like that? Again, Copilot can really help you do that.
Excellent, thank you. And just kind of as we get towards the end, security. Talk to me a bit about security, because
we have to be so cognizant of security, company data, and not misusing it?
So it's dead simple, from my perspective at least. Make sure it's enterprise authentication. Make sure it's secured, as in there's audit logs so you can see what's going on. Make sure you've got clear data policies, and in that policy you understand where the data is going, how it's being used, and hopefully not training somebody else's model. And make sure you've got the ability to code well. There's nothing worse than turning something on and you don't know how to turn it off. So make sure you can do those 4 things and you should be in a good place.
Excellent, thank you. So yeah, just conscious we're coming to the end of our half-an-hour slot. So take away from today the kind of 3 key messages on starting your AI journey. You've got your 5 essential questions. You've got the 4 key stakeholders that Fraser took you through, and small and secure. Start with something small that's going to almost be like a quick win, but make sure it's secure. So you're showing something that works, you're showing the value, then you can expand upon that and put it into other use cases. And you'll have your champions of people like me that get super excited about it now, that's really helped sort of transform the way that they work. So yeah, those are the key takeaways. Fraser, I'd like to thank you so much for the insights you've given. Is there anything you want to just add as a wrap up?
Yeah, look, for the eagle-eyed of you, you will spot that today's presentation hasn't been done using PowerPoint. It's been done using AI. We talked a little bit about Copilot and M365 Copilot because those are easy entry points. This series of webinars will take you through a whole load of different elements, and AI is wide, breadth, depth. There's so many functions available, but today is just the starter for 10. How do you get going? Who needs to be in the room? And what are the questions you should be asking for every single project that contains AI?